Welcome to Incognito Islamic Productions.
LGBT is a consequence of the secular liberal creed. So it's not an aberration of it. It actually emanates from the fundamental values of Western philosophy, which focuses upon the individual right to seek happiness and enjoyment, or if you want to use the word of utilitarianism, i.e. they need to be able to enjoy themselves, they need to be able to benefit. So this is not a new phenomenon that we're seeing now about the LGBT campaign. Even in the 70s and 80s, there were campaigns to normalize this. For example, in America, there's an organization which exists, which is called NAMBLA, North American Men's and Boys Lovers Association. In the UK, you have the PI, the Paedophile Information Exchange. And both of these are pressure groups trying to legitimize paedophilia. Even Harriet Harman tried to reduce the age of consent down to 12 in the 70s. And the Paedophile Information Exchange said at the time, we would like to abolish it. We would like to abolish the age of consent, but the public is not ready, so we would like to reduce it to 12. Zoophilia, as we know, is not illegal in some European countries. And this is because how do you determine right and wrong? If you exclude divine guidance, then all you are left with is benefit and pleasure. And how can you argue against that? And this is a problem that the West is having, because if this becomes the source of determining right and wrong, then everything can be legitimized and everything can be made illegal based on benefit or based on pleasure. For example, let's look at the problem of this logical argument. Why is sex with animals wrong? The current thinking is, that's because they cannot consent. Well, okay, which is a bigger crime, murder or rape? And you'll find that in most legal codes around the world, murder has a bigger sentence than rape. So when you murder an animal to make a kebab, or you murder an animal to make a burger, do you ask for his consent? No, you don't. So if you don't ask for his consent when you murder it, why do you need his consent if you want to rape it? Logical argument, and it shows you the fallacy of using logic. And it shows you the fallacy of a human being in a position to determine what is right and wrong. Let's look at another example. Why is it wrong to have relationship with children? Because they cannot consent. Do you ask for their consent when you ask them to eat vegetables? When you ask them to go to bed? When you ask them to go to school? When you ask them to do the homework? There are so many things that you do with your children. You don't ask for their consent, but as a parent, you feel it's your responsibility to do what is in their best interest. So, if you as an adult believe it's in their best interest for their sexual development, why have you got a problem with that? Which is why, if you leave issue of making right and wrong to the mind, or to your benefit, or to other interests, or to man-made ideologies, you are going to end up with problems. So you need divine guidance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen those people who have taken their desires as God? So if you use your own desires or your inclinations to determine what is right and wrong, you will never be able to achieve that, because that is the right of Allah. He alone knows what is right and wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Quran, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَقْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And perhaps you hate a thing, but it's good for you. And perhaps you love a thing, it's bad for you. Allah knows, you know not. So our desires are not a basis for determining right and wrong. Because if you use your mind, like I said already, you can just about legitimize anything, and you can just about make anything forbidden. For example, you can say from the mind that alcohol should be forbidden. You say it's bad for your health, it's bad for society, causes violence, causes harm to the NHS, something like £6 billion extra each year due to alcohol abuse. And you can construct an argument to say alcohol is bad for society, ban it. And that's a good argument. But on the flip side, you can make an equally strong argument to say alcohol should never be forbidden, because alcohol generates so much taxation for a society that if you ban alcohol, you will have a huge decrease in the tax revenue. How are you going to run the hospitals, the police, the roads and everything else? If you ban alcohol, suddenly lots of people have lost their jobs. If you ban alcohol, lots of sporting events can't take place because they are sponsored by alcohol businesses. So when you look at it from that perspective, how can you ban alcohol? Now this is the problem, because the human mind, depending on where his benefit or his interest is, he can construct an argument to legitimize or to delegitimize something. Therefore, this should show you that man is unable to know what is right and wrong. We have senses, we can sense the real world, but you cannot sense with your senses what is right and what is wrong. That is determined not by the actual object, it is determined by a basis that you refer to. Because an action you do is not a thing. An action you do of like stabbing somebody, is an action. Is that right or wrong? Well, if you stab somebody, an innocent person, that's wrong. But if you're in part of an army in a battlefield and you stab your enemy, that's not a bad thing. The act is exactly the same. But your criterion will determine whether it's right or wrong. Therefore, the simple point here is a human being is unable to know what is right and wrong. And therefore, the need for divine guidance to guide human beings. So what can we do? Or what must we do? Like I said earlier, the Shahada teaches a lesson of refutation followed by affirmation. And this is an excellent opportunity for us to demonstrate to the wider society that look, logic, science, nature, these things cannot be used to determine right and wrong. You need divine guidance. So we need to immunize our communities first and foremost against the storm of liberal values which is raining down upon our kids and our communities and confusing many and not understanding what's going on. So it's the duty of the people who lead our communities, the ulama, to take a stand and educate our communities about Islam, about these fundamental values of Islam. And this is part and parcel of the prevent agenda to secularize Islam and Muslims. So it is no surprise that way back in 2007, 2005, if I'm not mistaken, where Tony Blair equated calling homosexuality a sin, equated that with terrorism. Because for them, this is the battle. The battle here is not about violence or terrorism. The battle here is to secularize Islam. And this is something we need to stand up against.